Hello, everyone. How are you all doing today? My name is Alec,
My name is Alex.
and welcome to the Alec and Alex Fantasy Experience. We are here to give you our Week 2 rankings. Obviously, for those of you who have not watched this before on our channel, this does not include players from the Thursday night game, and it does apparently include Adrian Peterson, but we'll get to him in a second. We are going to start with our QBs, as we always do. If you want to find the rankings, they're in the video description for your convenience. Players with the 3 asterisks next to their names are the guys that we are going to be going in depth on. And everyone else, if you want our thoughts, you can hit me up on Twitter, hit us up on Facebook, in the comment section, whatever floats your freaking boat. And on
Float
that
that boat.
whatever keeps your boat afloat.
Oh. All right,
Anyway,
let's get started.
quarterbacks. So number 1, shouldn't surprise you, we got Peyton Manning, 2 Aaron Rodgers, 3 Drew Brees, 4 Andrew Luck, and 5, a guy who you wouldn't have thought would be this high up, but he had a tremendous game against a reasonable Saints defense last week. Matt Ryan went off.
Yeah, Saints a little thin at corner, and that ended up being a problem, which kind of crazy. You know, they cut Champ Bailey before week 1, which I thought was a little weird because they need help at corner, but their safeties are great with Morrow and Jarvis Bird. So I don't know. I mean, so first of all, that was a pretty good defense that Matt Ryan absolutely detonated. I mean, a huge game, 448 yards, 3 touchdowns, and I don't know, Wallace. I mean,
and that was with a pretty unproductive first half.
That's a good point. I mean, this isn't anything new or revolutionary. I mean, I like him a lot. I think he's great. And chances are, if you drafted Matt Ryan, you got a really good value. Because I was just looking back at my draft recap, and I got Russell Wilson in the same round as somebody got Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan went a couple picks before Russell Wilson, and I'll tell you what. So far, Matt Ryan looks like the guy you'd want to own out of those two.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I mean, the thing with Matt Ryan is a lot of people were skeptical after Tony left, because, you know, Tony is his spirit animal, more or less, and Matty Ice rode him to victory many a time, and people were worried. But then again, the difference between this year and last year is that, at least for the time being, Julio Jones is healthy. And I think
and Roddy White, too.
And Roddy White is healthier than he was last year. He was dealing with, a high ankle sprain for a lot of the year?
That's correct.
And that is something that, while you can be on the field shortly after, you're not going to be 100%. So Roddy White looks a lot better. And overall, as long as his targets are healthy, and they also brought in Devin Hester, which is relevant.
He actually played really well for them.
Yeah, we're not quite ready to pick him up, but we'll keep our eye on Mr. Hester. But nonetheless, even at Cincinnati, a reasonable pass defense. We really like Matt Ryan. If you own him, you're almost definitely starting him.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to add. We like him a lot. And, I mean, even go back and look at his numbers from last year. He had a good year last year, and everything went wrong for that team, right?
Absolutely. Injuries all over. Julio, Steven Jackson missed a lot of time.
That's true.
So, we like him. And hopefully, what's the deal with Jake Matthews? Is he missing time? Because I know he left the game last week, but I don't think I saw any further updates. So as far as I know, he's playing.
It's really good. Morris.
While I go on, do you want to look that up?
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up. I don't. Oh, he's out for the Bengals game.
Okay, well that is relevant, but he did miss time in the Saints game as well.
Yep, that's right.
And that didn't affect him too much.
Yeah, good call on that on the line, Walrus. Walrus, you're an offensive line guy.
No, I'm not.
That's one of the great thing about fantasy football. You do not need to know. You do not need to follow the offensive lines beyond this team has a good line, this team has a bad line.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't need to know the individual guys because that is so confusing.
Mm-hmm. Now moving on, our next 5, we've got Matthew Stafford at number 6, Colin Kaepernick, Russell Wilson, Nick Foles, Cam Newton rounds out the top 10, and at number 11, we've got Tony Romo, who, while Matt Ryan exploded for a huge game, Tony Romo kind of imploded against a stingy Niners defense, but he doesn't get a dramatically better matchup at Tennessee this week. What do we think about Tony, and will he bounce back?
Well, I think it's kind of crazy to suggest that, you know, Tony Romo is totally done or you should sit him, or, I mean, I know some other rankings we looked at him very low, and I don't know, Walrus, are you going to go with the Tony Romo's bad week last week, or are you going to go with like the multiple years of his career where he's been a very good, not only a very good quarterback, but a very good fantasy quarterback as well. I mean, I'm not super worried. Are you?
So here's the thing, and I was talking with someone today who I believe their uncle works at one of the prime rehab centers in the Dallas area.
What?
I'm not kidding. And he was telling me how, like, Prince Fielder went there and Romo did as well. And Prince Fielder was going like 6 hours a day while rehabbing. Tony Romo skipped half of his rehab sessions and went for about 3 hours as opposed to the expected 4+.
Wait, are you serious?
No. I mean, no, I'm not kidding. Yes, I'm serious.
Wait, that's crazy. Well, Prince Fielder, they both had back injuries. Yeah, Fielder's injury this year was a back injury. That's true.
And Prince Fielder went for the full thing. And by comparison, Tony Romo took it like a joke. This is rehab for a back that he had surgery on. So, am I totally out on Tony Romo? No.
Wow, Walrus.
That didn't reassure me.
Investigative journalism. I mean, I look at Romo last week in the first quarter, and like he still got you 9 fantasy points. I know that's not good.
It's pretty bad, actually.
If I told you a quarterback threw 3 picks, you would expect him to get less than 9 fantasy points,
or
right?
I'd expect him to be Matthew Stafford.
Good. That's fair.
Matthew Stafford throws 3 picks and gets more than 9 points on a regular basis.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, I don't know. I like him. The Titans are a good defense against quarterbacks. They played well against Alex Smith last week. I mean, that's Alex Smith, so I don't necessarily know what to say, but I am comfortable where we have Tony Romo. Mm-hmm. I think he's the point where you'd start looking for somebody on waivers. Would you agree? Like just for this week specifically?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think with the quarterbacks we have here, if you own someone else who's ahead, we're going to tell you to start them. And if you have someone below, we're going to tell you to go with Romo. Because he still has the upside of having a very talented receiver core, a good running back, and a defense that'll give up a lot of points and pretty much force a shootout.
Yeah, I agree.
So the situation is prime. But last week, and the little tidbit of information I found out don't leave me particularly confident.
Right. So after him, we got Tom Brady, number 12, Locker, number 13, Smokin Jay Cutler with a cigarette curled in his lip, number 14, Andy Dalton, 15, and then another NFC East quarterback that we're going to talk about at number 16. We've got Robert Griffin III and a matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars. What do you think, Walrus?
So, who were the Redskins playing last week? With the Texans?
The Redskins were playing... Give me a minute. Just start going. Go
ahead. Well, in any case, the thing with Robert Griffin III, unlike Tony Romo, is not quite so much unlike Tony Romo.
It was the Texans, Walrus, by the way.
It was the Texans. So he is playing a better matchup this week versus Jacksonville, but he played pretty terrible, and even in the preseason, he did not look good. Now, you look at the other side and say, all right, he's got Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson, who would be number 1 wide receivers on most teams each. And he's got both of them. He's got a talented running back in Alfred Morris. And we've seen him 2 years ago play at a borderline elite level.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you have that. On the other hand, for the past year plus,
he has failed to
impress us. And that's why we have him ranked this low. And until he's able to string a couple solid performances together, it's hard for us to be too high on him despite the weapons.
Yeah, and I really wouldn't want to be an RG3 owner at this point in the year because there are no injury concerns right now, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, imagine a couple games into the year when he actually starts to get dinged up a little bit. Like, then what are you supposed to do?
I don't know, and he still doesn't know how to slide, which I think is pretty important for.
I think I read somewhere that he was like at nationals, like at nationals. I don't know, practice or something, trying to learn how to slide from the baseball players. I don't know if that's true.
I mean, I sure hope so because he's pretty bad at it.
If it is true, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, but it also says a bit on where his weakness is.
That's right.
And for a mobile quarterback, because I don't think Robert Griffin III is ever going to be elite as a pocket passer.
Yeah, I think his upside is like a better version of Russell Wilson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
absolutely.
He's in an offense that gives him the ball more. I think he's probably just like a more dynamic player than Wilson. But yeah, I agree with you. He's never going to be like Drew Brees or anything like that. Like, he's a different kind of prototype for sure.
Yeah. And then rounding out our top 20, we've got Carson Palmer at 17, Ryan Fitzpatrick 18, Ryan Tannehill 19, and Geno Smith 20. We're going to quickly go on about Ryan Fitzpatrick, who is playing at Oakland, which is a pretty juicy matchup. Geno Smith put up a reasonable performance against them last week.
Yeah.
And Ryan Fitzpatrick's got some better weapons than Geno does.
Yeah, I mean, we like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, obviously a low-end quarterback. In those 2 quarterback leagues, he's a pretty good guy for you to start, though, in a 2 quarterback league. Good week last week, 206 yards, a touchdown. Looked good. I mean, he's got some weapons, like you said. DeAndre Hopkins looked good last week again. Andre Johnson looked like Andre Johnson.
And a great receiving back in Foster. So
yeah,
I actually wouldn't be surprised if Fitzpatrick tore up Oakland. That said, I also wouldn't be surprised if he threw 2 interceptions and no touchdowns.
I mean,
he's Ryan Fitzpatrick.
These are the best receivers he's ever played with, right?
Without a doubt. And that's why we like him so much this year.
When he was good in Buffalo, he was, maybe a little better than league average?
Yeah, maybe just outside top 15, I would say.
Right.
I don't think he was ever above average.
So I guess we can consider him, maybe in that range, just with the weapons, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's why we have him ranked here.
Yeah. I think he's like kind of I don't know, people don't tend to think about him as being a decent option just because he's been around for such a long time. But I don't know. I mean, he's certainly more interesting than Josh McCown, who also had 13 fantasy points last week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think he's a good prospective pickup because if he can really get in tune with those weapons, he could be good this year.
Yep,
and certainly this week at Oakland is a good enough matchup where if you're in a 2-quarterback league, we'd start him. So yeah, that's more or less it. Now moving on to our running backs. Number 1, we've got Adrian Peterson, who isn't even playing, so it's we did these rankings before we found out that Adrian Peterson had been indicted. You can find out more information about that via our good friends over at Google. But so Adrian Peterson will not be suiting up. We don't have any further information on that case at the moment, but watch out for it. But yeah, definitely don't start him, even though he is our number 1 running back.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because he would have had a great matchup.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame in a number of different ways, man. It's all I'll say about all of this all this moral stuff as it relates to football is it's getting harder and harder to be an NFL fan.
It really is.
That's all.
What do you say about Goodell? Do you think he's going to survive this season?
No, I think he's out. I mean, I don't know if he'll be out. I think enough.
Well,
the die is
now.
Can you
hear
me
now? You're
good.
good.
Okay, cool. I think the die has been cast. Like, I don't know if he'll make it through this season, but he's not long for the league. He will not be the commissioner next season.
His approval rating is lower or higher than Obama's right now.
That's actually a good. I mean, the difference between him and Obama is like the product is still good. Oh my goodness.
Whoa! It's a fantasy football rager.
I apologize, man. These roommates do not, or not roommates. These actual floor mates do not behave themselves.
It sounds like they're literally like chugging beer out of a funnel as we speak.
They just love to have a lot of fun. It's kind of outrageous. I apologize about this, Walrus.
It happens. Anyway, moving on.
Actually, you know what? I'll just keep talking. I'm going to move to a more strategic position. Just you can continue.
Number 2, we have LeSean McCoy. Number 3, Marshawn Lynch. Number 4, Arian Foster. 5, Matt Forte. And 6, Jamaal Charles, who had an abysmal performance last week against the Titans. This week, he is going to be at Denver, which, if I remember correctly, last year was not an overly positive matchup for him. Are you there, Alex?
Yeah, I'm here.
Is that correct? Jamaal Charles not outstanding versus Denver last year?
Right, yeah. I mean, I would say the Chiefs in general struggled against Denver last. The Denver defense is better this year.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say about this week versus last week for the Chiefs is they will get Dwayne Bowe back. Or at least I believe he's probable.
Yeah.
So that's one upside.
Right. Just so
I guess
a little pressure on Charles, sure.
Yeah, I guess the thing is with Charles is he's still an elite level talent running back until proven otherwise.
Yeah.
That one game against an above average defense doesn't worry us too much, and he's had subpar games before. We would expect at least a bounce back, and even against Denver, with how badly the Chiefs struggle, I think you still have to start him and consider him a middle of the pack running back one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think a lot of the concern about Jamaal Charles was the workload last week. And the thing about the workload, he had 7 yards. And obviously that's awful. But the big thing that you were banking on with Jamaal Charles is the receiving game, right? But he only had 4 catches for 15 yards. So I'm not super worried, though, because I don't really know, like, what else would Kansas City do with their offense besides give him the ball, right?
That's exactly it, and it's why we trust him so much. He's the focal point of both their running and passing attack.
It's got to be him. And it makes sense that they only scored 10 points against Tennessee when Jamaal Charles touched the ball 11 times. Can you imagine Jamaal Charles only touched the ball 11 times? Like, what?
No wonder they lost.
Yeah,
I would expect a change in the game plan, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I believe we're ready to move on. Number 7, Gio Bernard. 8, DeMarco Murray. 9, Alfred Morris. And 10, we've got Eddie Lacy, who had a pretty bad game last week, but granted it was against that brutal Seattle defense. And this week, after having a brief concussion scare, he's matched up against the Jets, which, while not a great pass defense, are a very stingy run D, and naturally, we don't love the matchup.
Yeah, one of the problems with... So I guess it's a good and a bad thing to be a very good fantasy player on a very good offense, right? Because the Packers don't need to run to win this game. You know, they can put up a ton of points on the Jets just by throwing the ball, and they've got a lot of weapons to throw the ball to, and one really huge weapon throwing the ball. Mm-hmm. So, I'm a little worried about Eddie Lacy because I don't necessarily think the workload will be there. I mean, he only had 12 rushes last week, although, again, I'd say he probably would have had 3 or 4 more, considering if he hadn't left with the injury. He's not super active in the passing game. So, yeah, I'm a little bit worried about the workload this week just because I don't know if he'd be effective against that Jets defense.
Yeah, it's not a matter of the carries, which as is, I wouldn't be too confident about unless the Packers are up by like 20 plus in the first half. In which case, yes, he'll get carries. But otherwise, if the Jets can move the ball against a pretty mediocre Packers defense, I could definitely see them just not running all that much and Lacy getting under 15 carries. And under 15 carries is not enough to have a strong fantasy day against that Jets run D. That said, the reason we have him at number 10 is because he's still very talented, and he may have goal line opportunities. That'll be his saving grace.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah,
unless John Kuhn steals them.
Which he did last week, by the way. Yeah.
John Kuhn is like 30 NFL touchdowns.
I know. John Kuhn is the enemy of all fantasy football players. It's the worst. All right, moving on. Number 11, Montee Ball. Number 12, Frank Gore. 13, Knowshon Moreno, who, Walrus, by the way, Knowshon Moreno is I guess he was the big pickup this week, right? I guess most people owned him, but I guess he's the big change in perception, right?
Hey, a lot of people after this past year, Knowshon Moreno was a top 5 fantasy running back.
Yeah, that's true.
And a lot of people thought, okay, well, that's just because he was on the best offense in football. This past week, playing with the Dolphins against New England, he may have proved us wrong, but we'll need to see a bit more before we can commit to that. But overall, Knowshon looks strong. Anyway, 14. Shane Vereen.
And Walrus, number 15.
Yeah, what a fall from grace for Zach Stacy, and we have him higher than a lot of other people do.
That's true.
At Tam, I believe you meant Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Is Tam? Oh, yeah. I guess you're right.
You're the worst.
I apologize about that. But Walrus, give me an argument for Zach Stacy being this high. Even this high. I mean, he's not even high, but let's give me an argument. Let's hear it.
The Rams are going to be playing Austin Davis, undrafted free agent at quarterback.
But amazingly good undrafted free agent.
Yeah,
go ahead.
They're going to have to run the ball. So now the reason he's lower than he was last week, and a lot of his preseason rankings showed him at, is because Benny Cunningham got pretty much as many carries. I think Zach Stacy had 12 carries last week.
Yep.
For 40 some odd yards.
Yep.
Now, granted, the Vikings D was expected to be improved. They got Anthony Barr in the draft. But yeah, a lot of people are worried about the workload because that was one of the big things that Zach Stacy had going for him. Again, that said, I wouldn't totally jump ship quite yet. With Bradford out and Sean Hill's health in question, they are going to be running a lot, even if he is sharing time with Benny Cunningham.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the problem is that Benny Cunningham actually saw not a lot more, but more snaps than Stacy. Cunningham was 47%, Stacy was 44% of the snaps on offense. But I don't know, Wallace. I mean, I have a really difficult time believing a guy who had such a good year last year. I mean, he was really great last year. I think down the stretch, he probably was one of the 3 most consistent fantasy running backs. Would you agree with that?
He was absolutely tremendous.
And he put up some big games against really tough defenses. I don't know. I have a difficult time believing he's totally done.
No, yeah. A lot of people are out already. It was one game. And it was a weird game anyway for the Rams for a lot of reasons. Chris Long went down. Sean Hill went down. It's been a mess. And the Rams season is screwed. I see them winning 4 games.
Really?
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
Another draft pick, though. You get to get excited for the draft for, what, the 8th year in a row?
Yeah, but this time hopefully we stop screwing up and get, like, a quarterback.
Right.
If we could get Mariota or Winston, then maybe we have a shot. Whatever. I don't want to talk about the Rams.
You're salivating. All right, 16. Chris Johnson, big game for you, Walrus. Good on your Chris Johnson. 17. Reggie Bush, and 18. Andre Ellington, who didn't really pop like champagne last week. You think he's going to pop like champagne against the Giants?
Well, first of all, how's his health looking?
Let's see. I mean, he's good. He's good to go. He's going to be playing, I think. He's listed as questionable, bothered by a foot injury, but, I mean, he's going to play. Like, he was questionable last week as well. Remember, in our last video, we talked about how you really couldn't start him because he was a Monday night game.
This is no longer the case.
Yeah, right. This is no longer the case. But, I don't know. I mean, see, the thing is we don't really know how badly injured he is, and we don't really know if it's the injury that affected his performance or he just didn't have a particularly good game against the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals' offense as a whole was pretty stagnant for the entire first half.
Right.
So it wasn't just him, it was really everyone in general. And then they were behind by a lot and they had to air it out for pretty much the entire fourth quarter and a lot of the third as well. So that didn't play in his favor, and especially for a guy who on average is getting 15 snaps or less, it's a little worrisome that he wasn't as involved in the passing game, which is where he really gets his value.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I guess I liked him going into the year. He was, I think, the big running back sleeper pick this year. I was a little worried just because I wasn't sure, if Bruce Arians would fully commit to him like he should. And that didn't really seem to be the problem. The problem last week, I think, was just it was a bit of a weird game. I still like Andre Ellington, but
hey, we have him right now as a low-end running back too.
Right, and I think that's right. He's not a must start, and there are a lot of players who I think are safer plays than him this week.
Absolutely. And to round out our top 20, we've got C.J. Spiller 19, Rashad Jennings, king of NFL running backs,
the king
20.
Kiss the ring.
We usually only do our top 20 running backs, but this week we did top 30 because we forgot to stop at 20.
No, that's false. It's because we love our fans.
Sorry, I misspoke. I meant because we love our fans.
There we go.
But anyway, the only one we really want to go over here, you can see who else we have in the video description, but 21, we have Terrence West, who is playing against New Orleans. A lot of people are high on Terrence West. We think he is a viable start this week, playing over the injured Ben Tate. We talked about him in our free agent pickup video, so I don't have too much more to add. Do you?
No, not a whole lot more to add. We just, you need to worry if those short touchdowns get taken away like they did last week. But still, Terrence West was effective without touchdowns last week.
Absolutely. And that's it for running backs. We don't really care enough about, players range. Well, Darren Sproles 22 is interesting, but Mark Ingram through D'Angelo Williams, yuck.
Wait, Morris, just a quick question. You're not super into Toby Gerhart?
Moving on.
All right. Moving right along.
Wide receivers. Number one, we have king of NFL wide receivers, Calvin Johnson.
Right.
Calvin Johnson Jr.?
Yeah, Calvin Johnson Jr., Steve Smith Sr. Yeah. I'm kind of liking these additional titles on the back of these jerseys.
Number 2, AJ Green. Number 3, Demaryius Thomas. Number 4, Jordy Nelson. And number 5, Julio Jones. Now, going back to Jordy Nelson, and we're also going to talk about Randall Cobb here, who we have at number 8. Same thing as Eddie Lacy, except the opposite. Jets, great run D, abysmal pass D. Aaron Rodgers should have a field day. Jordy Nelson looked serviceable as a fantasy option against Seattle.
Yep.
Which is pretty exciting, considering now he gets to go up against... Do you even know who's going to cover Jordy Nelson? Try to name the player.
Well, D. Milner's not playing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I know. I can't name anyone in the Jets.
It's really bad. The Jets secondary.
Can you or no?
I can, but I don't want to because Kyle Wilson.
You can't even get it out.
Yeah. So Jordy Nelson, wide receiver 1, Randall Cobb, a low end wide receiver 1. They should have pretty awesome upside, and expect a fun time if you own either of them.
Yeah, not a whole lot to add. I mean, if you put up 8 points against the Seahawks, 9 receptions and 14 targets. Pretty good. Pretty good when it comes time to play the Jets.
Absolutely. Moving on, number 6, Brandon Marshall. 7, Des Bryant. 8, as we said, Randall Cobb. 9, Alshon Jeffrey. 10, Vincent Jackson. Moving right along, Percy Harvin, Cordarrelle Patterson, Jeremy Maclin, Andre Johnson, and Michael Floyd make up our top 15. Nothing too relevant to talk about there. Jeremy Maclin was pretty silent for the first 3 quarters, had a big touchdown catch late in the game.
Although, Walrus, that touchdown catch was on a terribly blown coverage. Does that worry you about Jeremy Maclin at all?
I mean, it doesn't worry me about Maclin, although he would have had probably a worse game if it weren't for that. So,
I don't know, because some people tend to say, well, I don't think, I'm a little worried about Maclin because he wouldn't have caught that touchdown if the coverage weren't blown so badly. I don't really think that that's a logical way to think because he still caught the touchdown and he still ran the route that, the coverage was blown on,
Yeah. And not only that, he's still clearly the number 1 target in that offense.
Absolutely.
So even if that was the case, we expect him to have a good week this week.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
16, Pierre Garçon. 17, Reggie Wayne. 18, Emmanuel Sanders. 19, at Roddy White TV. And 20, we have Michael Crabtree. Going back to Reggie Wayne. So entering the season, we were higher on T.Y. Hilton than Reggie Wayne. Now, a lot of that was because Reggie Wayne is more of an injury concern.
Yeah.
We didn't know what % he would be at coming after an injury-riddled year. That said, he's got a great matchup against Philly. Mm-hmm. And he appears to be the number 1 target in that offense.
Yeah, 13 targets, led the team. And you think Philly's going to put up some points. So this could be an exciting shootout of a game. And I just like the consistency a lot more than I like T.Y. Hilton's. Now, Reggie Wayne had 9 receptions, so he's looking at about a little more than 10 yards a catch for 98 yards. Not great. I mean, not what he used to be, but I don't really care as long as the volume's there. Right, Walrus?
Yeah, as a Reggie Wayne owner, just to put things in perspective, on some of the teams I have, I'm starting him over the likes of Marcus Colston and Keenan Allen. Which normally you wouldn't have thought to do going into the season, but considering matchups and situations on their respective teams, and the fact that Reggie Wayne is going to be a Hall of Fame receiver, all in all, things looking up for Reggie.
Definitely.
Second favorite sports player named Reggie for me?
Behind Reggie Jackson.
No.
Reggie Bush.
This should be an easy one, man. Come on.
I don't
think
know.
New York Nets and think glass.
What? Oh, Reggie Evans.
Brooklyn.
Reggie Evans?
Of course.
Oh my God!
He's the best.
Get the heck out of here. Reggie Jackson was way cooler. He wore glasses when he played. It was the best.
Reggie Evans lives and breathes boards.
That's true.
I have nothing else to say.
He does get all the boys. He's still on Sacramento. I think he's still on Sacramento.
I think he is, yeah.
Amazing. He's probably loving it out there. All right, so then after Roddy White TV at 19, we have Crabtree at 20. Did you say that, Walrus?
Yeah, I believe so. Moving right along.
Well, 21, Mike Wallace, who we want to talk about a little bit. Mike Wallace has got a matchup against Buffalo, the surprising Buffalo Bills, who came out of Week 1 in Chicago with a win. We kind of like Mike Wallace this week, right, Walrus?
Yeah, we definitely do. Things didn't really pan out for him last year, but he had a very strong week against what was supposed to be a good New England pass defense.
Yeah.
And you've got that Darrelle Revis guy. I hear he's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we like Mike Wallace a lot. I don't know. I mean, a lot of the concerns we had last year are similar to the ones this year, right? I mean, he's not he's a deep threat more than anything, and we didn't think he was the best sort of guy to have in terms of consistency, but I don't know. I think Tannehill's improved, and I think he's got the sort of matchup he could take advantage of.
Yeah, we like him this week as a middle of the pack, maybe high-end wide receiver 3. Not much more else to say.
Yeah,
22, Julian Edelman. 23, Deshaun Jackson. 24, Kendall Wright. And 25, and 26
Cooks.
For that matter. We've got
Brandon Cooks experience.
And Marcus Colston right next to each other. Now, the reason we like Brandon Cooks more is, one, he just had a much bigger game, and Marcus Colston fumbled the ball that lost
he did.
The game.
He also had a couple drops.
Yeah, Colston had a very iffy game, and Cooks had a ridiculous game.
You love both. Who do you love more? I know you love.
I love
both.
Brandon Cooks way more because he's also active out of the backfield.
Yeah, I guess you're right about that. Brandon Cooks looked great. I mean, really great.
They were designing plays for him. That's how you know that he's going to be a relevant piece in that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're not ready to put him in the top 15 of receivers yet.
Well, he's a rookie. Look where he is.
Yeah, no, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Some people did though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my argument is, he's a rookie wide receiver,
and we've seen one game.
He's done it for 1 week. Let's pump the brakes. Same thing with Kelvin Benjamin as well, who's at number 28 for us. But I like Brandon Cooks. I think he's great, but I wouldn't expect him to be more than a wide receiver 2 yet. Right, Walrus?
So I think he could have another huge game, but we haven't seen enough to confidently put him up there because he also, in that Saints offense, plenty of receivers. Pretty much any offensive player not named Drew Brees or Jimmy Graham is prone to get lost in that very crowded offense.
I agree with you.
So that's another part of why we don't have him quite as high. We really need to see that he's a centerpiece and not just a role player in it.
I agree.
And we have yet to get confirmation, but that said, he is a high upside play this week, and we do like him.
Good call. All right, so 27, Eric Decker on your New York Jets. Looked good last week, actually, by the way.
Yeah.
Kelvin Benjamin, as we mentioned earlier, number 28. Golden Tate, 29, actually also looked pretty good, too. And number 30, someone who didn't really look so good week 1, Keenan Allen. And he's got a terrible matchup against the Seattle Seahawks. This is making us nervous, right, Walrus?
Keenan Allen, similar situation to Eddie Lacy in that the first 2 matchups of the season are basically like 2 of the worst ones you could think of.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, both of them played Seattle in the first 2 weeks.
Huh. They must be good. Is that true?
I think that's the point we're getting at here, at least.
All right. Well, I'll think about it. You keep talking. I'm going to think about it.
Yeah. Nonetheless, Keenan Allen did not look great against a very good Cardinals pass defense.
Yep. He was shadowed by Patrick Peterson all night.
Yeah, so really, it's not having him down here at number 30 is not to say that we think he's regressed since last year or he has moved down as far as the depth chart on the San Diego receivers, but the matchup is abysmal.
Yeah, that's the only reason, and we'll see. The Seahawks play things differently than the Cardinals do. The Cardinals would move Patrick Peterson to shadow Keenan Allen, and the Seahawks wouldn't do that with Richard Sherman. So it's possible that Keenan Allen has a productive game on the opposite side of the field as Richard Sherman, but at the same time, I mean, a good pass rush and a good running defense, and we'll have to see if San Diego can really get anything going against the best defense in the NFL.
The one point of upside that we can look at is that Jordy Nelson was able to have a somewhat productive game against Seattle.
That's a good point.
Maybe Keenan Allen will have the same fate, and luckily it's in San Diego, not in Seattle, which is another big point of difference.
Yeah, and I mean, Keenan Allen did have 9 targets last week, so it wasn't like he wasn't involved. So
no, we love him going forward, just not this week.
Yeah, good call. All right. Tight ends.
Tight ends kind of suck to talk about as always because they're pretty vanilla. Top 3, we've got Jimmy Graham, Julius Thomas, Rob Gronkowski. Those 3 are kind of in a class of their own, with Vereen just sort of being in his own little bubble of like not quite elite, but also above everyone else that's behind him.
Absolutely. Greg Olsen, number 5. We like Zach Ertz at number 6.
And Martellus Bennett.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be like... Zach Ertz should be owned in all leagues. I don't think he is yet, but like
close.
This is going to be the last time you'll be able to pick up Zach Ertz.
He's a starting tight end with some level of talent in a offense that moves the ball a lot. Yeah,
I mean, I like Zach Ertz. If you don't have one of the top 4 guys and Greg Olsen, he's who you should be starting this week.
That would make sense. Moving down, there's really not too much else to say. We talked about Dwayne Allen in our free agent pickup video. We think he, especially against Philly, has some upside. Antonio Gates, he played well last week, and he really separated himself from Ladarius Green, but he's got Seattle, so that's pretty iffy.
I guess Larry Donnell has a tiny bit of upside. Had a pretty good game last week, but like at that
he's
point,
he's on the Giants.
All right. That's true. I mean, Wallace, that is something I can't argue with.
Yeah,
he is on the Giants, but I mean, I don't know like 8 targets. That's okay. He had a touchdown.
That's not nothing. There's a reason he's on our list.
Yeah.
Getting on our rankings is as high of an honor as receiving an Oscar nomination.
That's a really good point. I remember getting an email from Xavier Grimble when we put him as an honorable mention, top 30 or top 20 tight end at the beginning of the year. He sent me this beautiful email thanking us so much for recognizing his talent.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet. Thanks for hoarding that, you asshole.
Yeah, I haven't forwarded you the Xavier Grimble email. Xavier said it was mostly intended for me, and that he actually...
You are the Giants fan.
He preferred me to you, was what... In fewer words, that was what he said.
I'm going to take it as the bias of you two both associating yourselves with such a bad team. You've got a little brotherhood there.
It's totally possible Xavier Grimble isn't even on the team anymore.
Very, very possible.
Yeah. You know what, Walrus? He's actually cut on August 26th. pour them all out for Xavier Grimble.
Well, on that note, that's a depressing way to end an episode, but I'll put a picture of some cats up to end it on a much brighter note.
I was going to put up a picture of Xavier Grimble doing something sweet, but
it'll just make me sad.
That's fair.
Anyway, my name is Alec.
My name is Alex.
And good luck this week.
See you later.
Go Birds.